Hi, I'm Sonu, and a learning facilitator for economics. And today I'll be sharing my experience with you. And mind you, it is not about teaching, but learning. The difference? What's the difference? Okay, our role should be focused more on facilitating learning rather than teaching. And in other words, my purpose is not accomplished if I finish the presentation. It would be accomplished if you walk away having learned something new today. So today's goal is to learn strategies that simplify learning. But before we do that, let us understand what's learning all about and what's our learning journey like. So the learning journey is primarily from the state of ignorance to the state of mastery. That is, when it comes to ignorance, we start with ignorance because there are times wherein, in principle, we do not know what we do not know. And then we come to a state of awareness wherein we have conscious incompetence, meaning we are aware of what we do not know. And comes the point of learning wherein we try to address what we do not know. In other words, now we know what we needed to know. And as we practice, we gain that expertise in that field, whatever we have learned, and we switch into the unconscious competence, which is mastery, wherein everything goes, or we are able to do a lot of things without much of an effort. So we start moving, with the work or any of the applications much effortlessly. What are the key challenges that actually impede or can be creating hurdles towards this learning process? So ideally, in few words, if I have to put it up, differences in learners are at the heart of challenge when it comes to learning. All these challenges, there can be differences at the starting point for the learners. Possibly, for example, I may have a session wherein I have students who have practically no background of economics, and then there are people who have done economics before. There can be differences in language. We are all global citizens in the international environment. So naturally, people come from different cultural backgrounds, and that could actually affect the communication, creates a big communication barrier. And if, for example, like if you do not understand my accent, it could interfere with your learning. Yes or no? Or the other way around, like me not being able to understand what my students are saying. So it's a two-way thing. It's not necessarily only from one side we should consider. We have both ways that communication barrier that can impede the learning as well as the inclusion. And there can be differences in your physical and mental abilities, your preparedness for the courses or learning, your prior learning. Not everyone enjoys maths, not everyone enjoys language. So sometimes if the courses are actually content driven, they can in fact affect your confidence level. How? If they're content driven, they would just create that fear in you of learning. That pure fear of learning can actually make you procrastinate the contents that you have to learn. It's like a minor surgery is there and you're taken to a big operation theater. You can imagine. So, yes, the challenges are definitely, in terms of all these differences, the people's readiness for that learning. And how do we address so many challenges at one go? Quite a difficult task. And with my years of experience, my conclusion was that the first step should be very easy solution: keep the learning simple. Keep the learning simple? Yes, because learning needs to be learner driven. That's the first aspect. Some of you may say, okay, we have to cover the contents and we have to do so much other things. But let me say this: when the learning is kept simple at the starting phase, when people have developed that interest in that subject, or whatever course or whatever concepts you're trying to give, once they're interested, they are self motivated, self driven. And that comes the point wherein the complex concepts do not become difficult to deliver. So, how can I keep it simple? Some strategies that I would share with you today. My first strategy is that of practice to theory. Practice to theory, like we link learners' day to day life experiences to the concepts, the other way around. Normally, people say it's theory to practice because commonly the approach is that the concepts are delivered and then we bring in, look, this is what is happening in the real world. This concept links to that practical side of the story. Whereas I do it completely opposite. I bring you to your life experiences first and then pick out that concept from there and link it and then say, this is what you already know. And this is what you could call is the deductive approach in learning. So the real scenario, life scenarios come first, and then the concept is deduced. Let's do it for an example. To deliver a basic concept like that of a buyer's behavior, if I ask my students, and I normally do that, of course, give them different prices for price level for the price, for apples here, and ask them to fill in these quantities against them. Keeping everything else same, of course, that's an assumption. Nothing else is changing, but only the price. And you won't believe it, but it's true. 95% of the students in every class come up with this trend. That is, as the price is decreasing, they're all asking for more apples. As the price increases, there's a lesser quantity. Just the opposite, you could read it. Yes, there can be exceptions. And that also again helps me to make them understand that how the subject is actually a social science. People would differ, but on an average, what is coming up is what's taken up on board. And this is how the demand pattern occurs. And what it is called in economics is the law of demand. Without my delivery of the concept, the students can relate to the concept and they feel confident that yes, they know this concept. Now they are interested and they're ready to explore more. And then I can leave them, and I actually do trigger those kind of stimulus critical thinking questions for complex concepts. Simple question: reducing the price did mean more quantity. Do you think reducing the price is a good strategy for the seller? You would see it. Not necessarily all the time. From 10 to 7, there would have been a reduction in revenue. From 10 to 5, yes, there is more revenue. So again, it is a question that starts them or thinking for more complex concepts, which we do later. That's called price elasticity of demand. Another one that's literally close to my heart is body language. I have actually developed my own economics aerobics, because it uses the psychomotor domain of Bloom's taxonomy, keeps the learning environment fun, students enjoy, and we build on a very good spirit. And in the Zoom environment, all the more good because it gives you a lot of stretches. I've developed my own economics aerobics. And the best part, it mitigates the challenge of the language barriers and the numeracy skills. Economics is incomplete without diagrams. You can see it. Just the concept that we learned, demand, this is the demand diagram. More quantity demanded at lower price is extension, less quantity at a higher price is contraction. Just a movement along this curve. Not everyone understands it. And it is just one diagram? No. In this particular topic, when we do it, we'll end up having, this is still just the humble beginning. And not everyone likes these kind of diagrams and graphs. It's a challenge, and the learner can be completely deterred from this. Now, body language is bringing in a lot of good idea here, and I'll prove it to you in a minute's time, not even a minute, maybe 30 seconds. I'll make you learn all these diagrams. Lift up your right arm at a 45-degree angle. You could do that. Place it next to the demand curve, and that is your demand curve. Lift up right arm at 45-degree angle. I'm sorry if I can visible. Yeah, that's your supply curve. Talking about the demand curve, when you take it backwards, here it is extension. That is contraction. Think of the supply curve, extension, contraction. But you can see it when I do this extension for demand and supply, I'm doing it together, contraction. You can do it yourself, right and left arm. When your right arm goes backwards, it is your extension in demand. So now you're jogging, right? When we jog like this only, don't we? Here, I'm just running more or less. Yeah. And you cannot forget economics by running as well. And this is your, equilibrium. And this is your surplus. This is your shortage. Increases to the right, decreases to the left. Left is less. So that's another way of remembering. Yeah. So increase, my dance moves are going on. Decrease, increase, decrease. I just do this. I'm shaking my hands. And the students just love it like that. And I love watching them in the examination rooms sometimes, literally, trying to recollect the concepts using their pens and doing your right, left. And it is so much of fun learning. If jogging wasn't enough, arm wrestling is coming to your rescue again. And this arm wrestling, in fact, I use it for a much more complex concept that's called elasticity, that will take you in a short while too, and how the tax burdens are shifted. We'll talk about it very soon though. So linking to the other subjects is yet another strategy. It is important that we keep having different subjects being talked of, because it brings in that variety, especially for the learners from different backgrounds, and stimulates that curiosity, and also that past learning comes in play. Okay, what is Newton's third law of motion? Or just even if I just said Newton's law of motion, I get some very interesting responses sometimes. Yes. I'm not a science student. I'm a science student, not a law student. What if someone says that? It's funny, yeah. But the two words definitely come out. That is action and reaction. And action and reaction for elasticity as a concept I use very effectively, actually. That is, the more reactive you are, the more elastic, more flexible, more adaptive, right? Less reactive, less reaction, inelastic, rigid. Now, I did say that I do use this concept, even if you're not with an economics background, you will remember this easily. How does this, who bears the tax burden when it comes to, the taxes being imposed on the goods and services? Ask yourself one question. That is, would I react a lot to a change in price or a little? If I react a lot, that reaction is giving me the muscle power. I will not take the burden as a buyer. Seller will have to bear it. On the other side, if I don't react, it's a necessity for me. I have no option but to take the increase in price even when the prices of the goods are going up due to the taxes. So that arm wrestling, those little link to the other subjects, make it very interesting and easy for the students to remember. So the idea of more reaction elastic, less reaction inelastic. And to any cause. And it helps you to make them understand the concepts, the cause and effect relationship, the magnitudes, and plethora of other things. The other strategy that I always use is the props. It creates, again, a lot of fun learning environment. The whole thing is, we want to break that monotony, that boredom of learning in classes, especially in the classroom setups, with our attention span being so less. So it enables quick application and a lot of recollection of the concepts. So what kind of props do I use? Of course, the flashcards. Flashcards are quite popular, easy, but again, a lot of things can be recollected. Just now we have done, price and quantity. So if price goes up, quantity demanded falls down. This is the law of demand we learned. We could also remember the elasticity. Price increases, quantity falls just a little. It is inelastic. Price goes up, quantity demand falls a lot. Elastic. So these things, now I'll take you to macroeconomics, of course, a little different idea there, and visualizing the economy as a balloon. And think of it, so much can be explained through this. What's happening if you inject money? That's where we keep saying government should spend money, government should do this. Okay, so let's say government is spending money, or there are more investments taking place in our economy, or we are exporting a lot of goods and services and we are having a lot of money coming in. So what's going to happen to this economy? Think of this money as the air I'm blowing. What happened to my economy? My economy is expanding, right? Expanding. My quick question to you: do you think that the government should keep injecting money? Should we keep injecting money into our economy? We want it to be growing. Hey, are you scared of something right now? There would be a boom noise because this balloon would burst if I keep blowing air in, if I keep injecting money in. So while it is easy to say government should keep spending more money, what's likely to happen to the economy? You never know. It could actually burst, meaning the price levels could go up and the economies can actually crash. That's what happened in Greece, right? And right now during the pandemic, we know what's happening to our economies. Oh, they are actually shrinking. More and more people are wanting to save, and all other possible leakages are happening. You are the finance minister, and you would know the answer to it very quickly. What should the government do now? Yes, go back, inject more money into the flow. The more money you inject, the bigger your economy would grow. And that's one reason that's clearly explaining why the Reserve Bank of Australia has reduced the interest rates right now. Or not only in Australia, practically every country, why the Reserve Banks have done that, or why the governments are spending so much of money. So this is like one of the ways that the students literally enjoy and kind of can remember and recollect all these concepts much easily. Last but not the least, I also use a lot of analogies because when it comes to analogies, that connection happens to the concepts. People kind of really relate to themselves or to the things around them, and that kind of helps in remembering the concepts for a longer period. So let's look at one example very quickly with the time constraints there. What's this? A roller coaster, right? Everyone can relate to it. Up, down, right? There's an upswing and a downswing. Well, this is also your business cycles and economics. There is an upswing and a downswing, and an upswing and a downswing, peak, trough, not much of a difference. And based on this, you also understand that no economy would want this roller coaster ride nonstop. And that's where we understand why the government intervention is important, why the Reserve Bank actions are important, why we want to make it smooth, and a rising trend. So, one analogy and the concept is here. To conclude, by simplifying learning at the initial stages, as you would have seen, I was only taking you through economics concepts. You could very well apply it to any of the courses and even to the management principles here. By simplifying learning at the initial stages, the learners are being enthused for learning. And naturally, when you're motivated, when you're interested, you get more engaged and you take that ownership of learning. And that's where the delivery of complex concepts becomes much easier. And typically, this is the way I would deliver any lecture in economics. Keep it too simple. I've done from, I should say, executive MBA classes to the students at undergraduate level, and everyone has always enjoyed more or less all these strategies. That's where my learning and teaching model comes from too. The takeaway points for everyone here, maybe you could think of at least, if not many, one strategy that you would like to take along for your own course and even for your management to have a better inclusion in your teams and a greater motivation levels. You can reach me for any questions on my email. And also, of course, we do have the plenary session later on. So should you have any questions, feel free to pop up a message. Thank you for your time there. Cheers.